Welcome, everybody. My name's Lisa. I'm joining you today from sunny Cambridge in the UK. And this webinar is going to be all about our London courses. So this is quite exciting. We last ran our London courses in 2019. So this will be a sort of reintroduction to everybody here today. So your speakers today, here's a little bit about me. You may have seen me in a previous webinar. Essentially, my job is everything that goes on in the classroom and with the tutors and the academic side of the programme. I was lucky enough to join Oxford Summer Courses as the London programme was being developed, so I've kind of seen it right from the beginning up to our sort of new partner that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm lucky enough to be joined by Hannah.
Hi everyone, so my name's Hannah and I'm Oxford based. I joined Oxford Summer Courses back in 2017 after graduating from Oxford Brookes University. A lot of my work has been working with young people and making an impact, on young people in education. And so my role within Oxford Summer Courses is to design and deliver the social and cultural elements of the course. So that's everything that happens outside of teaching. We'll touch on that a little bit more later on, but really just designing that authentic learning experience for our students. And I'll pass back over to Lisa now, who will go through that in a bit more detail.
Fabulous. Thank you, Hannah. So what we'll be covering in today's session. So how it's going to work, we're going to give you an introduction to the programme, what sort of makes our London courses special, and especially what distinguishes them from our courses in Oxford and Cambridge. There will be time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat and we will try to answer as many of those as possible. We'll introduce our new host partner, the London Interdisciplinary School. So you'll hear a little bit more about them, why we're excited to work with them. And we'll do a bit of a deeper dive into the timetable so that you can imagine what the student experience is going to be like for you. We'll also take a closer look at the PBL teaching methodology. So that's the project-based learning methodology that will happen on these courses. And as I say, we'll finish off with those questions. So any questions you have, please put in the chat. You might get a couple of answers from some of the team behind the scenes beforehand, but other than that, we will wait till the end. So just an introduction for those of you who are new to Oxford Summer Courses. The founding principles of Oxford Summer Courses are pretty simple. So basically, we offer you remarkable educational experiences taught by experienced tutors in exceptional locations. And London is no different. So we've been running courses for 10 years now, more than 10 years. And I like to think it's a little bit more than a summer school. So best way of me describing this is with an example. So just the other week, I was speaking to a tutor who's going to be teaching with us this year. And this tutor was actually a student on one of our courses back in 2016. He was really inspired in his subject. He studied abroad, but then has come to the UK. He studied his master's and is going to be a tutor with us this year and is still talking about his Oxford Summer Courses tutor as being such an influence on what he's been doing. So I hope that we'll be able to give some of you some of those experiences as well. Now, a bit about our story. So here is a picture of Harry on the left, Rob on the right, our co-founders. They started Oxford Summer Courses because they studied and taught in Oxford at the University of Oxford and wanted to be able to share that sort of authentic Oxford experience with others. We've expanded since then, so into Cambridge, into London, into courses for younger students. What you might not know about Harry and Rob is that they also have experience of living and working in the industry in London. And it's this experience that they wanted to be able to share with you on our London courses. So what does London look like? If there's one thing that you take from this webinar, this is what I'd like you to know about. So there is more to our London courses than the location. There can be a misconception sometimes that this is the same as our courses in Oxford and Cambridge, but just sort of lifted and put in London. But actually, that's not the case. So these courses are instead designed to develop the practical skills and the knowledge you need to effectively solve real issues. So it's based around that idea of working in industry in London. Now, I've mentioned skills here. If you are a student, I'd like you to think about the sorts of skills that you think you would need to have when you graduate and when you go into your first sort of proper job in industry. So think about those skills and just keep those in mind as we go through the rest of this. If you're a parent, I'd like you to think back to when you finished your education and you went into industry and which skills you didn't necessarily have before that you find really useful now. So just bear those in mind. Now, there are sort of 4 key bits about the London courses that make them a little bit different. The first thing is that there is an interdisciplinary project-based approach. This means that you're not focusing purely on your own subject and ignoring everything else. There is a chance to discuss things with people studying other subjects, to have a little bit of a sort of wider view of what's going on. And this is led by people who know the industry. So tutors in the past. So, for example, for creative industries, we've had a media producer who's worked in animation in the film industry. For AI and software development, we've had somebody who's been head of a software company. So people who really know their stuff. The second thing, these courses are aimed at people who want to test potential career options in a university setting. This isn't like doing work experience. This is very much taking on the types of roles that you might be expected to do in those industries, but being able to sort of explore that in a slightly safer way where it doesn't necessarily matter at the end, but you really get a feel for what that's like. One of the tutors that I spoke to recently has said the reason that she wants to be able to teach these courses is that this is what she wanted when she was this age so that she could really understand what that industry was like. The third thing, so the ideal student for these courses. The ideal student is somebody who's open to collaborative work, working with other people, and open to learning from their peers. So learning from each other as well. If that sounds like you, perhaps the London courses would be a good option. And the last thing, you will work on the sorts of skills that employers want to see from graduates of the future. So think about those skills I was talking about. What is it that employers really want to see? I'm going to move on now to really what makes our London courses special. What are you going to get out of these? And the first thing is these skills for the future workplace. And the 3 I've got here, problem solving, resilience, and communication. These aren't just 3 sort of random skills. These are based on the 2019 Global Skills Gap Report. So this is where hundreds and hundreds of employers in different countries were asked which skills they consider to be important in their industry, in their particular areas of expertise, and how good they thought the people coming from education, so perhaps recent graduates, how good they were at those skills. And what you actually find is that the most important skills aren't necessarily the ones that people are best at. But through these courses, this is something that we'd like to help you change. So problem solving is the number 1 biggest skills gap, where people don't necessarily develop the problem solving skills, even if they've got really deep subject knowledge, which is why we use this problem-based learning methodology that you'll hear about later. And the second one is resilience. Things go wrong sometimes, and especially in industry, they don't necessarily always go your way. There may be a few problems. Resilience is your ability to be able to sort of pick yourself up from that, to be able to move on, and to be able to deal with that without it becoming a massive problem. And the third one is communication. So not just working together, but how you communicate with people. How do you communicate things to people who aren't experts in what you do? How do you make sure you take on board all the best ideas from all the best people? This is what we'll be working on. Now, the second bit, this is a little bit more practical. So this is what our London courses involve. We have subjects for students aged 15 to 17 and for students aged 18 to 24. Now, 18 to 24 is new for this year, based on demand we've had from students before. These subjects aren't available on our Oxford and Cambridge courses, they're available on our London courses only. So if one of those takes your fancy, if perhaps you're maybe interested in going into this area in future, that could be a sensible choice for you. You'll notice we've got interdisciplinary studies here in bold. That is a new subject for this year. So if you're really keen on the interdisciplinary bit, the sort of taking little bits of knowledge from different places and putting them together, that could be a really good option. When you think about areas like climate change that are becoming more prominent, people working in that area often have a bit of a background in science. They have to understand the international relations. They have to understand the government policy side of things. They might have to understand a bit of the marketing side of things. So there are plenty of areas in jobs now that will require you to have that sort of interdisciplinary view. Now, the next thing, this is something that is actually similar to our course in Oxford and Cambridge. They are small classes. So in your group, there will be a maximum of 8 students. So you'll have a maximum of 8 classmates, and you'll all be working on the same project together. There will be your tutor who will make sure that you have all of your knowledge, all of the knowledge that you need to be able to succeed. They're the ones who are going to sort of set that challenge for you. And they're the ones who are going to sort of lead you throughout the course. There will also be a teaching assistant there. So your teaching assistant will have some subject knowledge. They will be able to help you in some of the more specific project-based bits, in the group work, in sessions that are a bit more independent when your tutor isn't there. Your teaching assistant will be there. So we know sometimes, especially the sorts of group projects you might get for homework at school, it can be a little bit tricky where you don't have somebody kind of overseeing you, things like that. So your teaching assistant will be able to help. They'll be able to sort of take you on the visits, help you get the most out of those. Now, the fourth thing, I could speak more, but I thought it best to leave it in the words of our past students for London. So I'll give you a second to have a little look at these here. The quote that I really wanted to pick out here actually is the bottom one. It immersed one more in the studies and made me feel like it was worth coming all the way here. There are some really great online courses around, but actually, when it comes to working closely in a group of people, the benefits that you get from seeing each other face to face, to understanding the body language, to spending time with each other kind of outside of the classroom, really getting to know each other. It's something that we do as a company. I mentioned earlier, I'm in Cambridge, Hannah's in Oxford. We still find the time to get together face to face. And this makes a really big difference to that experience. Mentioning Hannah, I am now going to hand over to her and she is going to introduce our partner for this year.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our partner for our London courses this year, a little bit more about the campus and what they do as well as a university, which I think really interlinks with what we are running throughout our London courses. We're really, really excited to be partnering with the London Interdisciplinary School this year. They're in fact one of the newest universities in the UK, and they really understand the need to put students at the heart of modern social issues and developing those practical skills and the knowledge that's needed to effectively solve them in the future. So they do this through interdisciplinary teaching and collective expertise in order to create a new style of graduate who they like to say is more rounded and able to solve those real world problems. I think this aligns quite nicely with our London courses, and that's why we're really excited to be working with them this year. As Lisa's mentioned, London is very project-based. It's about developing those skills that you can implement into the real world in your particular industry and get really stuck into those. So I think this is a great partner for us this year. Not only that, they're actually based really central to London. It's a really nice location. And London was recently voted the best student city for its diversity of culture, the quality of life, and the academic performance as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what this will look like during our London courses in terms of the experience, what you can expect from some of the facilities, and also a bit more about the activities that will be involved shortly. But for now, I'll pass back over to Lisa, who's going to talk through the timetable in a bit more detail.
Fabulous. Thank you. So this is roughly what the timetable looks like for our courses. And for both age groups, this is going to look very similar. For the 18 to 24 age group, there will be a bit more freedom outside of classes, but I'm going to focus on what happens within the classes and what types of sessions you can expect. So towards the beginning of the course, we've got a few sessions called subject immersion. So this is perhaps most similar to the seminar style teaching that you might get in our Oxford and Cambridge courses. This is where the tutor is going to be really going through the knowledge that you're going to need to succeed. Obviously, you're all coming from all over the world. We've seen already, you may have covered different things at school, have different areas of knowledge. So this is about getting everybody up to a similar sort of level. You'll spend time on things like case studies. You'll have quite interactive teaching, and you'll really learn that key information. Now, next, the other main type of session we've got here is the project development. That's really where you're going to be working on this project, and you'll have a single project that, as a group, you're going to be working on together throughout the 2 weeks. These sessions are very much going to be led by you. So your tutor will be there. They will be there to advise you and guide you and help you. But this is where you get a say in the direction that things are going in, and really get to put into practice that learning. There will also be some visits in the timetable. And unlike with our Oxford and Cambridge courses, there will be specific subject-related visits. In the past, that's included places like Amazon Fashion Studios, the Old Operating Theatre. Our commercial law students have sat in on a court case, all sorts of things to try and help you get the best out of the subject and give you a bit of inspiration, and to really show you what that industry is like from the inside. Now, industry collaboration. This first Friday is all industry collaboration. Now, what that means is that you won't just be working in your subject group. You'll have chances to work with people from other subject groups, to share ideas, to explain what you're doing, to find those kind of similarities between, your different subjects, your different projects. And that's really representative of how things work in the real world. I can use this webinar as an example. You're seeing myself and Hannah. What you're not seeing is the help that we'll have had from our tech team, putting together things in the background, from our marketing team, who are the very reason that you know about this in the first place. And we all work together on one thing, even though we have our own separate specialities. Outside of those main times, we have some preparation time in here. This could be research-based. There will be chances for you to sort of put together bits of presentations, to maybe work a bit more independently in pairs. This is time where your tutor may give you guidance about what to do. Your teaching assistant will be there to help. But this is really kind of thinking for yourself here. And the course will finish with presentations and graduation. So you will present your project, not just to your fellow students, but also an expert panel who will be able to sort of ask you some slightly tricky questions, hopefully, and you'll do a great job of answering them. And then you get to celebrate with a proper graduation dinner on the final day. I'll now hand over to Hannah, who is going to talk you through what happens outside of classes.
Thank you. So what does the student experience look like on one of our London courses? Well, as I mentioned, we're partnering with the London Interdisciplinary School this year, and the campus is home to a range of teaching, learning, and communal spaces, which have all been designed to facilitate that collaboration and learning environment. Our London courses definitely promote this strong and valued student community. So you'll have a chance to engage with other students in these communal areas, which will have access to Wi-Fi, studio study space, and also an area where you can relax in a bit of a TV room as well. So after all of your hard work throughout the day, there's a chance to relax and socialise with some of the other students. As I mentioned as well, the campus is really well located in London. It's really central, and this will be a really big part of your course, whether that's going off on site visits or some of the activities that you do. It will all be really in and around London, in some of the best places. Alongside the really great location, it's also safe and secure, and it will be a comfortable base for you during your stay. So just a bit more information on what the bedrooms and the accommodation looks like. We have a couple of pictures up here. And so each room is a single bedroom, and it's within a corridor where there are shared bathroom facilities. Within the shared facilities, it's very private, so there are individual locker rooms where you can kind of you have your own space within that. It is also worth mentioning that our London courses do have a non-residential option. I would suggest getting in touch with our admissions team for some more information about that as well. So that's the student experience in terms of the campus. And if we could just go on to the next slide, Lisa, I'll talk to you a bit more about the social and cultural experience too. So outside of all of your lessons and your project-based learning, you'll have lots of opportunity to explore London and what makes it such a great city to be a student in. So these activities and day trips will all be led by our pastoral staff, and they're all very familiar with London. They'll be able to kind of guide you through some of the lesser known areas and sites and attractions that are, I suppose, usually missed out by tourists. So you'll get a real sense of connection to the city, like a London local would. So I think that's really exciting. Alongside that, you will have the opportunity to visit some of the more popular sites. In the past, our London students have visited places like the London Eye, South Kensington museums, and they've also taken boat trips along the River Thames as well. But if there are particular things that you're interested in, you can speak to your pastoral staff members and they can tailor the activities to your interests. So they're very familiar, like I said, with the location and all of the different things you can get up to. And I'll pass back over to Lisa now to go through some of the teaching.
Fabulous. Thank you. So I thought we'd finish this with a bit of a deeper dive into what project-based learning is, because this is something that a lot of people haven't heard about before these courses. So basically, project-based learning or problem-based learning is, instead of covering theory in class, then showing what you've learned in a project, you learn everything while working on the problem. So it's the teaching method that we use for our London courses. It's the teaching method that the London Interdisciplinary School use in their degree courses. And it's becoming more and more popular. Now, there are a few elements of PBL. You have a challenging problem or question. Now, that means the purpose of the project is going to be to find a solution to a question or problem that's not easy to solve. And that problem will be set by your tutor at the start of the course. There's sustained inquiry. Now, this means as a student, you have to ask lots of questions. You have to find the resources you need and apply what you learn as you go along. So this is going to be demanding, perhaps not in the same way that an intimate tutorial would be in Oxford, but it's going to be demanding and challenging in a different way. Authenticity is a key bit here. So your project will be based on a genuine real-world context that could, in theory, have a wider impact. So an example for this would be in one of our past courses, our medical science students looked at a plan for dealing with medical emergencies at Notting Hill Carnival. Now, student voice and choice. What we mean by this is that it's not just down to your tutor to make decisions. As a student, you can influence the direction that the project takes and express your ideas freely. So you really get a say in what this looks like for you. There's also going to be time for reflection. That's time to stop work, think about how well things are going, and to help sort of make improvements and overcome difficulties. Reflection is something that happens a lot in business. It's not something you often get the chance to do whilst you're learning. And linked to that is critique and revision. This means you have the opportunity to get feedback from your tutors, from your teaching assistant, from the students in your group, from the students outside of your group. And you can use this to improve the project, as well as, of course, giving feedback to others. Finally, there is a public product. And what we mean by a public product is that it ends with the opportunity to share work with people beyond the classroom. So when you do your final presentations, firstly, it's not just you're making a presentation, you've done a load of work on the project and you're showing off what you've done. But it's going to be to your fellow students, it's going to be to your on-course staff team, to tutors, teaching assistants, and of course that expert panel who are going to help. So that's a sort of rundown of what this looks like. If you want to know a little bit more about what this could involve in practice, there are lots of example syllabuses from before that our admissions team can help you with, so do get in touch with them. Thank you very much, everybody, and it's been a real pleasure to be able to talk about our London courses again.